Ready to make extra pay? Drive with Mama Move today.
So, welcome to our Public International Law class. May I request everyone to please open your videos? Okay. So as of now, there are around 14 participants. Although can you hear me? Can you everybody hear me? If you
Yes, sir.
Yes, po, Atty.
Yes, sir.
If you hear me, kindly raise your right hands, please. Okay, that's good. That's good. Okay, so since it's our first session, probably we will have to. I will give you some sort of an introduction so that you would know what public international law is all about. I know that you have expectations, and of course, I'm sure that some, if not all of you, are very much interested about public international law, considering that this is really giving way to its students the so-called idea as to what is happening worldwide right now, especially that we are confronted with a lot of issues, cosmopolitan in nature, that would affect even the single individual in every state. Let me just introduce myself so that we can formally know each other. I am Attorney John Castriciones. If some of you are interested about public matters, let's say government affairs, I was the former secretary of the Department of Agrarian Reform. Now, the main task of the agrarian reform, of course, is to distribute lands. And, well, anyway, I'm sure that some of you have heard probably about me. And just to share you a little bit about myself, before I became the secretary of the Department of Agrarian Reform, I was also the undersecretary of the DILG, Department of Interior and Local Government. And prior to that, I was also the director of the Department of Transportation and Communication. Before, it used to be DOTR, Department of Transportation, Department of Transportation and Communication. But now it's already DOTR, is it not? And so, well, anyway, I have a professorial background. I started as a teacher in Xavier School in Green Hills. And thereafter, I also taught in different law schools. I taught in Arellano Law University, Arellano College of Law, and also Philippine Public Safety College. And also, right now I am actually teaching in St. Mary's University, that's in Nueva Vizcaya. And of course, right here in the Philippine Christian University right now. Well, anyway, with regards to my education, my background is that my undergrad would be AB Political Science. And thereafter, I took up law. And also, I took up Masters in International Law in the University of Notre Dame in the London Law Center. And that is the reason why my interest lies in international law. Although in practice, of course, I was tasked by the Duterte administration to distribute lands to our farmers. And, during my stint as the secretary of the Department of Agrarian Reform, I was able to distribute more or less, modesty aside, 429,000 hectares of land nationwide. And I think that's a very important aspect of our economy, considering that this would somehow enhance the lives of our poor farmers. There are a lot of farmers in our country right now who are very poor, and of course they need a piece of land. A very important piece of program which I was able to contribute was the passage of the EO 75, which was signed by President Duterte, wherein I encouraged the distribution of lands to our agricultural graduates. If you are an agricultural graduate with a 4-year course, you are capacitated, or you are qualified to receive 3 hectares of land. and that would be your laboratory farm, so that you would be able to utilize your knowledge, your skills in, of course, in the so-called modern approaches in agriculture. And I think that's quite good. And I hope that this administration would continue that program so that we will be able to enhance the productivity of our agricultural sector. Because for all you know, we need food sufficiency and self-reliance. Otherwise, if we don't have the food, then definitely that would be a big problem. You know the saying, a hungry stomach knows no law. And that would definitely create anarchy throughout our country. And I hope that it would not happen that way if we will be able to have this food sufficiency nationwide. Anyway, going back to our lesson, so based on the information that was given to me by Dean Romy Rason, there are around 32 enrollees among you, but as of this time, I can see that there are 22 participants. So probably the others are still finding it difficult to link up with us, but I hope sooner they would be able to link up with us so that they would not miss the so-called introductions, the terms and conditions that we need to comply with in order for us to have a very effective communication as to how we would be able to learn more about international law. By the way, I am recommending that we use the book that I wrote. I will show to you through sharing. No? I will share to you the picture. So this is the book that I recommend that we make use of. Actually, I have two other co-authors here in the person of Harry Roque. Of course, nobody would not know Harry Roque, the former presidential spokesperson. And also David Robert Aquino, who is a dean in Pampanga right now. And by the way, David Aquino happens to be my student before. Can you imagine, huh? So by that alone, you would be able to guess how old I am. I now have a student who is a dean. Although, of course, it's not only a dean that I have several students who are also congressmen. Some were undersecretaries. I even have a companion in the cabinet of the President Duterte, who was also a former secretary of the NEDA. He was my student also. And I have some students who are now judges, and some of them are well-known businessmen, some are governors. Anyway, I hope that from your ranks will rise future leaders of our country. You know, there is a saying that when you would like to take up law, it's either you end up as a politician or a lawyer who would just notarize documents. So which of the two would you like to be? Would you like to notarize documents or to become public officials? Not that I am trying to belittle those who would notarize documents, because, you know, as of this time, notarizing documents is also a very good way to practice law. Okay, so these are my rules, okay? These are my rules. Well, before we go to the rules, first and foremost, I'm sure you have seen the picture of the book that I wrote. That would be the book that we will be making use of. Now, if you want, I can negotiate for it to be delivered to you. You can probably just get it from the dean's office. I will probably put some books there, and you can just get it from them. Would you like that? Would you like it that way?
Yes,
Or
sir.
would you like just go to the bookstore and just buy it yourselves?
Sir,
Yes, anyone? Who?
how about the price, sir? How much we prepare?
I'm not sure about the price, but I
Okay.
will tell you during the next meeting. Or probably what we can do is that we create some sort of a system within which we would be able to know or relate to you information that are necessary, so that during the next meeting, you would be well prepared. to
May I,
have those books or any materials or any other information that would be covered under our session during the next meeting, I mean.
may I suggest, sir?
So, yes, go ahead. Your
If
name, please. When you
uh
talk, please introduce your names first because
yeah,
I would like to know you first because, of course, this is the first time that we met, so it would be difficult for me to memorize all your names.
yeah.
Please,
George Longay po, sir.
George. Okay,
Yeah,
George, go ahead.
as I heard, you have the availability of the copies of the book. So may I suggest if that is so, may I suggest the bidder to facilitate about the books, then we will give the payment through the bidder so that we can claim it maybe in the school.
That's a
Just
good suggestion. By the way, was there any appointed biddle or are you going to elect biddle amongst yourselves?
I'm gonna elect a bidder po, attorney.
When would be the election? When would be the election?
We will decide tonight, attorney, and then we'll inform you po.
Okay, that's good. So we'll just do it amongst yourselves. I'm sure that you are all grown up and you would not cheat during the election. And you will just have to make do with whatever is the choice of the majority, of course. Okay, so this will be my rules, huh? Whenever we're having a class, please always turn on your video so that we will be able to have a smooth exchange of communication because sometimes, there are technicalities within which you can circumvent the procedure because some people, most especially, even in my case during MCLEs, you would normally turn off the video and you would be doing something else. So I would like that your video will always be turned on so that I would know that there are people who are listening to me while we are conducting our class. Okay? That's number one. Number two, I want you to be all well prepared during the sessions because I'm sure that you are well aware that when you take up law, even prior to the pandemic, recitation is always very necessary. Okay, it's better if there is an exchange of ideas. My presumption is that when you attend my class, you have already prepared yourselves on the subject matter. You have read it, and all that we have to do is tackle it for purposes of trying to clarify some issues which are not clear to you. Okay? So, based on the outline of my book, there are actually 25 chapters there. So, I was told that there are 11 sessions that we will be conducting. You would also be able to enlighten yourselves uh, prior to the class, and probably whatever would be your queries, questions, your doubts, it can be well clarified. etc. So, you see, this all came about because of the relationship of states among states. So, how do you feel now? Is public international law okay with you? Or am I giving you so much information at this point in time? Okay, anyway. So going back to our lesson, because, I would just like to give you some other pointers. Can you please hand me the book? Excuse me. Fel, can you please hand me the book? Okay, going back to the book that I was referring to you, the Public International Law, the one that I wrote with Harry Roque and Dean Aquino. The first topics that we're going to discuss next meeting, which I suppose that there's a need for you to really secure a copy of this book and at the same time to read the first 3 chapters, no? The subject matter would be, number 1, chapter 1, it's about the nature of international law. Okay. Chapter 2 would be the sources of international law. And of course, chapter 3 would be the municipal law versus international law. Those are the topics which we will be discussing next meeting. And I am expecting that you would be ready and that you would do your best to really learn the 3 different chapters so that there would be a very exciting exchange of ideas that we will do when we will be discussing all these topics. Okay, anyway, so since it's the introduction, I would just delve into other more topics and then after probably we can dismiss the class earlier. Is that okay with you? So that you will be able to vote among yourselves who would be the biddle.
Yeah.
And then anyone who is voted upon as the biddle, can you kindly coordinate with me? I will give you my Viber number also so that whatever information I would like to relay to the members of this class would be well accepted and you will be well informed. And then the biddle will be the one to coordinate with all the members of the class. So as of now, there are 21. A while ago, there were 22 participants. So probably there's one who went out. I hope that if you would be leaving the class, you would seek my permission so that I would know who just went out and who would not like to continue attending during the class session. Okay, before we go to other matters that I would like to discuss with you for the meantime so that we will just give you an idea to expand your thoughts and ideas about public international law. Do you have any question so far? Anyone? Anyone who has any question at all?
Attorney?
Yes.
Reyes, direction po.
Oh, Ray, go ahead.
Nakausap ko po si Pastor Romy regarding po sa PIL. I'm taking this subject po for compliance po eh. I am a transferee po from PUP and I already passed po the subject, but however, sa PUP po kasi 2 units lang yung PIL and as advice po ni Pastor Romy, I have to enroll po the subject.
Anyone else who have the same kind of situation as Ray here? Ray, no? Ray?
Reyes po, attorney.
Reyes, I'm sorry. Anyone else?
Me to Attorney Samson.
Samson. So 2. Who else?
Biab, sir.
Kaya Biab, 3.
Lapus po, sir.
Lapus, 4. So only 4.
Sir, there is another one, sir. Miss Elena Aquino, but she seems to have she seems to be disconnected right now.
And another Lailena Aquino. Okay, so there would be 5 who are actually transferees, but because there is a requirement that you must have 3 units, isn't it? You are adding up another 1 unit in order to complete the subject. Okay, we can do it this way. There are 2 ways of doing it. One is for you to submit a paper. The other one is probably I will ask you to make a report on a subject matter and then you have to report before the class. you make your choices, and probably you have to inform the BIDL, the one who would be elected after this class, so that we would know what kind of option you would like to take, whether you would be submitting a report or a paper for you to complete. And if, of course, it would, it would be a blessing for you if you would be joining the class. You would learn a lot. It will really give you a lot of knowledge if you join this class, a lot of information can be shared with you, especially with international law. It's something that is very important these days. And I hope that you will not waste your time, because I'm sure that you have already paid your respective tuition fees. So it would be good if you will just hang around and listen and probably participate in the discussion, so that you would learn more about public international law. Come bar exams, I'm sure because of the recent developments in the world today, probably a big portion of the political law would include questions coming from public international law. So it would be to your advantage if you would be joining my class instead of just submitting a term paper or whatever. So it's up to you. You give me your option, but you are most welcome in my class. There's a saying: the more the better, the more the merrier. So it would be good if there would be a sharing of ideas from a lot of students. So as of now, you are 22 minus 5, that would be remaining 17. But I hope that the other students who have enrolled themselves to this class by next meeting would continue to attend these classes, because this is something very important. Okay, anyway, it's only 7 o'clock, so we have our class up to 9 o'clock. Is it not? Up to 9 o'clock? Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's good. Anyway, let's go to the issue of the Saba claim. I just like to give you an idea, just to tickle your minds and to inspire you to probably research or to study more about international law. I'd just like to give you some sort of a little information about it, so that later on, if you would like to pursue researches about it, or let's say further studies about it, you would be able to do so. Anyone who is knowledgeable about how the Saba claim or the Saba issue came about? Anyone? Just any information.
Attorney, may I po?
Okay, go ahead.
Well, that Sabah is the part of the West Philippine Sea, as far as I know.
No, Sabah is not a part of the West Philippine Sea. Sabah is actually down below. It's in Malaysia.
Yes, sir. As far as I know, that was part of the Philippine territory. And as I remember, Sabah was part of Malaysia. Hindi po ako magkakamali, if I am not mistaken. So, the history that I would say that was been it was been granted to the family of the royal family by the Philippine government. That's the only thing I remember.
Okay. At least you have the courage to speak up. Although it's not that accurate anyway. Anyone else who has any idea about the Saba claim?
Attorney,
Yeah, because this would be a good topic for international law.
Attorney Longay.
Yes, go ahead.
Sabah, it was before it was considered as North Borneo. No, at present, no. So it was believed that it belongs to the territory of Malaysia, but the Philippine government claimed Sabah during the time of President Macapagal, Diosdado, the father, on the basis of the historical and legal fact of the Sabah. So accordingly, the Sabah or the Philippines have the claim of Sabah from the Sultanate of Sulu at the time, which one ruled the southernmost region of the Philippines. The Sultanate asserts that this territory belongs to the Philippines. So I think that's the uh, basic info.
Okay. At least you hit around 30%. 30%. That's good. Anyone else?
I'll try.
Let's. Okay. Yes.
Sir.
Good.
Victor.
Good.
So actually, as far as I know, it all started when the Sultanate of Sulu leased a portion of land to the colonizers of Malaysia, which before when was the British, or there's a company under British empire that yun, British Dutch uh, and then it was parang nirentahan
Mhm.
until such time that both Malaysia and Philippines have their own independence, and then naiwan sa Sabah sa Malaysia yung part ng pinarenta ng Sultanate of Sulu dun sa British Dutch Indies, something like that. And then upon declaration of their own independence, Philippines and Malaysia, um, napasama yung province ng Sabah under Malaysia as one of its states. And then it continued uh, until today, until the last issue wherein the Sabah stopped providing rent fees to the families of the supposed owners of the land, which are the Philippines, something like that.
Okay. You hit around 70%. Huh? 70%. That's a good. That's a good batting average already. 70%. That's very good. Anyone else who would like to share his knowledge about the Sabah claim? You know, as law students, you should be aware of all of this. This is very important. You would not be able to understand the intricacies of international law if you would not know the historical background behind it and what are the treaties that were entered into because of this. There would be a lot of treaties and conventions that we will be tackling because of the Sabah claim, because this affects Philippines, this affects our country. And this is rather important for all of us. For all you know, if this will escalate into something big because of the importance of territorial jurisdictions nowadays that affects the economy of the country, then it might just result into some sort of altercation later on between and among states, and it will create problems. Just like what had happened in Russia and
Ukraine.
anyone? Correct. Russia and Ukraine. Can you imagine how Russia and Ukraine is that it is a quite distance from our country. It's so far from us, and yet because of the Ukraine-Russian conflict, the price of gasoline has been severely affected, and it is affecting our country as well. Is it not? And it's a good thing that there are remedial measures that have been introduced in order to check the price increases of these gasolines or petroleum. And that is the reason why it's also important to study, most especially those territorial disputes that we have with other countries, particularly Malaysia for the meantime, at this point in time, and also with China for that matter. Anyone else who has any other idea about the Sabah claim? Wala na.
Attorney,
Let's listen from-
may I add the point of the claim?
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
As I have emphasized a while ago, that the Sultanate of Sulu claimed that this is part of its territory because the Sultanate asserts that the Sabah territory was a gift of the Sultan of Brunei as a reward of Sulu's aid in the war of 1600s. So this Sabah Island was rewarded to the Sultanate of Sulu.
Ah. That's the good thing about this kind of learning, no? You can open your Wikipedia immediately
Yeah.
and you would be able to learn and you would be able to give the correct answers, is it not? So anyway, the time now is 7:05. I will give you a 5-minute break. Just a 5-minute break and we can start discussing again after the 5 minutes. So for the meantime, I will mute my microphone and you can also turn off your videos if you want to. But after 5 minutes, when I'm on the air, everybody must turn on their videos. So we'll have a 5-minute break. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, can you turn on all your videos? We can start. Okay. Okay. Praise Benavides. Miss Benavides. Okay, thank you. And Clyde Loren also.
Mr. po yan.
Sorry?
Mr. po, Mr. President.
Okay. Okay. So let's continue. So I hope that the matters that I'm discussing with you will not be an information overload, huh? You might be thinking that it would be as difficult as what I am doing right now. No. I'm just trying to titillate your minds. I'm just trying to tickle your minds so that you would know that international law is very exciting because it has something to do with current events in the world. And just for you to be interested, to be motivated, to really read your book so that you would know international. Because basically, the matters that we're going to discuss in international law would just be the basic ones. We will just be discussing about what international law is all about, the sources of international law, the customary laws, the laws that have been passed to treaties, conventions, etc., etc. Those are the matters that we will try to talk about. But then again, as I said, because international law affects all states, there are some current or contemporary issues that are very interesting because of international law. So I'm just trying to encourage you to really give your minds, your hearts, fully to these matters so that you would be able to learn more about international law. For all you know, many among you here would pursue their studies in international law and probably would go to US or to Europe just so that you would be able to study and pursue your international law. When I took up my master's in international law in the University of Notre Dame in London, that was way back 1998. So can you just imagine, although I am young looking, do I look young? The reality is I'm already old. I have two sons who are lawyers as well. There are three of us in the family who are lawyers. Two of my sons are still bachelors. No? One of my sons is the labor attaché, assistant labor attaché in Japan. And the other one is a director in the Department of Agrarian Reform. So all of us here, there are just three of us, male in the family, who are all lawyers. So, you know, it can also begin with you. Probably, if there are no other lawyers in your family, later on, your children or your siblings, your relatives will become lawyers as well because of you. You might be able to create some sort of interests or enthusiasm amongst your family members so that they would become lawyers. But before that thing can happen, you have to ensure that you will become lawyers first. That is the priority. See to it that you will become lawyers. Huh? I'm sure a lot of you here will become lawyers. You know why? When I took up my law, when I studied law, I was already married. I was already married and I already had two children then when I studied law. But it turned out being a lawyer was my cup of tea. I was really very much interested in law. And that's the reason why I've been in practice for the past 30 years. I have also been, as I told you a while ago, I have been a government official for quite some times, since 2007. And, you know, that's the good thing about becoming a lawyer, you know. When you are a lawyer, you can enter into different kinds of endeavors, whether in politics, economy, business, private practice, professorial jobs, everything at all. You can be a counselor or you can be a notary public also if you want to. So there are a lot of opportunities. So I hope that I would be able to encourage you more and inspire you more so that you will not lose hope and you would be giving your 100% attention to this kind of profession. You know, the only difficult thing about law is you have to read a lot. You have to spend so much time in reading. During our times when I was a lawyer, when I was still a student, we used to spend a lot of time in the libraries researching for some info. And normally we would just Xerox, we would just photocopy decided cases. But now it's so easy for you. All you have to do is to tap your computer and all the cases are already there. It would just fall into your lap, so to speak. So it's much easier to study law now, and that is your advantage. And the good thing about it is the passing average keeps on going higher, getting higher. Only recently there were, I think, more than 60% passed the bar exams. So I hope that you would also to pass the bar. During my times, the passing average was just 10% or 9% out of thousands of low bar examinees. Anyway, that can be attained. I'm sure that if you would have the effort and the patience, you would be able to pass the bar. Okay, so going back to international law, you know why I am very much interested to discuss with you this SABA claim? It has really affected our relationship with other countries. We almost entered into a war with Malaysia because of this SABA claim. Can you imagine? Okay, so what is the history behind? Just so that you would be able to have a background of it, no? Because even if it already happened in the past, in the near future, it may resurface again. And it might be a cause of problems for us, or it might be a cause of blessing for us because of the considerations or the so-called payments that may be made by Malaysia that would redound to the benefit of every single Filipino. So how was this? You know, in the past, the Sultan of Sulu and the Sultan of Brunei are relatives. They're relatives. They are actually when it comes to territorial jurisdictions, they are just near each other. If you look at your world map, Sulu, which happens to be in Mindanao at the southernmost tip, is it specifically in Tawi-Tawi in Sulu, you would find out that it's just near Brunei.
Mm.
You know, what happened was there was a rebellion that took place in Brunei. So the Sultan of Brunei was somehow his governance over his territory was challenged by some rebels. And so by himself, he cannot quell the rebellion. He cannot put a stop to the rebellion. So he asked for help and assistance from his cousin, from his relatives, which is the Sultan of Sulu. And the Sultan of Sulu responded. They assisted to quell the rebellion in Brunei. And they were able to successfully quell the rebellion. And because of this, the Sultan of Brunei, being in debt and as a recognition of their so-called gratitude to the Sultan of Sulu, has actually paid him by giving a portion of Borneo, which is the North Borneo or Sabah. If you would take a look at Borneo, Borneo is a big island, but the tipmost part of it, the northern part of it, is the North Borneo or the Sabah. Now, he gave it to the Sultan of Sulu. But then again, the Sultan of Sulu was saying, what will I do with this land? There are a lot of forest here, wild flora and fauna. What can we do with this? We have a lot of territories in Sulu. In fact, they are more interested about the seas because most of the Sulu territory are actually seas, open seas. So they were not very much interested about the Sabah until later on, the British North Borneo Company was interested to lease or to rent Sabah. Why? Because they came to learn that Sabah has a potential when it comes to petroleum. It has a rich source of petroleum. So to cut the long story short, they leased the property. So they entered into a contract. And in that contract, the condition is that it is a perpetual lease. Have you heard of that animal, perpetual lease? Is there such thing as a perpetual lease? Have you taken up this subject on lease, lessor, sales, etc.? Have you finished it already? Huh? Have you undergone this subject? Not yet. Because when you talk about perpetual lease, as far as I know, there's no such animal. Is it not perpetual lease? It has to have some sort of a definitive period of time.
Yeah.
When you say perpetual lease, that is eternal, perpetual.
Unlimited.
But unlimited number of years. That's true. But that's the condition that was entered into between the Sultan of Sulu and British North Borneo, specifically Sir Overbeck of British North Borneo. So later on, after it was already leased, the British, they're very enterprising. They were able to tap portions of British North Borneo as rich source of petroleum. That's why most of the oil that are produced there, as you can see, it's well off. And that is precisely the reason why Malaysia is very rich, because of the petroleum that supplies Malaysia, and not only Malaysia, but the whole world also. A big portion of it. Can you imagine if that territory is ours? Huh?
Yeah.
And we don't have problems about petroleum? We can be very rich. Like Brunei, they don't pay any taxes at all. Can you imagine if we do not pay taxes? Huh? And we are importing oil to other countries? We can be very, very rich, is it not? Okay, so that's where the problem began. Now, the Sultan of Sulu, later on, they wanted to reclaim back the Sabah. But there was a creation of the so-called Federation of Malaysia. Malaysia is a very young country. I think it only came about in the 60s. In the 60s. And then when they created the Federation of Malaysia, Malaysia is composed of different islands. To include British North Borneo, they included British North Borneo. But the thing is, how can Great Britain give that portion of land to Malaysia when in the first place they just lease it? Do you understand? You cannot transfer the territory to a certain country when you just list that territory. In other words, they do not own the territory. Huh? They do not own the territory. So that's the problem. But you know what they did? The British sold it. I mean, it's not sell, but they made it a part and portion of the newly created country, which is called the Federation of Malaysia. So Malaysia said, since it was given to us as our territory by the Great Britain, we own the British North Borneo. So that's where the problem has arisen. Now, the Sultan of Sulu have been claiming it all along. They were telling, oh, you give it back. Let us study the contract. Because in the contract, there is a very controversial word, which is the pajak. You see, it's a contract. It's a contract between two states. The word pajak. For the Malaysians, what it means is perpetual lease. For the Sulu, for the Sultan of Sulu and its people, what it means is just a lease. In other words, they just have it borrowed by Malaysia through the payment of rentals. And did you know that up to now they are paying actually rentals to the Sultan of Sulu? To the heirs of the Sultan of Sulu. They're still paying. I'm very fortunate that I was consulted about this matter before. I was one of the councils of Sulu Ismail, one of the heirs of the Sultan of Sulu, and I was the one who suggested to them a solution on how to get back the territory which we call now Sabah. So, because the Sultan of Sulu has actually given the Philippines the authority to claim that territory for and behalf of the Philippines, but of course through the Sultan of Sulu, there was a time when there was this controversy. It was during the time of President Ferdinand Marcos. And you call that the Jabida Massacre. Have you heard about the Jabida Massacre? In the Jabida Massacre, there were some young Muslims who were trained as cadres or soldiers, and they were trained in Corregidor. And the purpose of which was to invade that portion of Sabah, to get it back through military action, because they can no longer get it back from Malaysia because Malaysia claims it to be their territory. So they trained these young Muslims in Corregidor. But the problem is, some of them were not able to withstand the difficulty of the training. So because of this, they wanted to get out from Corregidor. They did not want to join the military adventurism, and some of them wanted to go home. But they cannot just let them go. And because of this, well, there is a controversy, but the end result was that all those people were killed. They were massacred. And one of them was able to escape, and he was able to swim and landed in Cavite. And because of that, one of the oppositionists during that time was Senator Benigno Aquino. And he made the privileged speech in Congress, in Senate, stating that there was a black plan of the then administration to invade Malaysia. And because of that, it almost caused a war between Malaysia and the Philippines. There was even a cessation of diplomatic ties during that time. Can you imagine? So, moving forward, right now, the Sultan of Sulu and its heirs, well, of course, the original Sultan of Sulu has already died. The heirs of the Sultan of Sulu, what he did was that that was actually my suggestion. That was my suggestion. Not that I'm taking credit for it, but it was my suggestion. Because, you know, under international law, if there is a territorial dispute, or listen to this, if there is a territorial dispute between two states, they must have to submit themselves to the jurisdiction of the International Court of Justice. But if one of the parties does not want to submit itself under the jurisdiction of the International Court of Justice, then the International Court of Justice cannot take cognizance of the case, which was the case on the part of the Philippines and Malaysia. Malaysia did not want to submit itself under the jurisdiction of the International Court of Justice, and therefore, the International Court of Justice cannot take cognizance of their jurisdiction. So my suggestion, because I just finished my international law during the time in London, what I suggested was that we bring it into an arbitral body, particularly in UK, because UK is involved. But because the heirs did not have the money to sustain a legal battle, international legal battle, I don't know whom they found to be the investor in order to file this case. But later on, I found out that they actually filed it in a Spanish arbitration committee, of which later on in France, I don't know how it happened that way. They were awarded a 25, if I'm not mistaken, 25 billion pesos.
Oh.
And right now, that is the controversy. The Malaysian government is now being compelled to pay 25 billion pesos as a form of compensation, not for the territory, but for the benefits that were actually harvested from the natural resources of Sabah. So can you imagine? Just because of that contract, and just because it cannot be subjected into the jurisdiction of the International Court of Justice. So can you imagine if they have recognized me as the counsel, I get 10% of 25 billion, then maybe at this point in time, I will not be teaching you anymore. Because I would be very filthy rich already.
Attorney, question.
Yes, go ahead.
I heard a while ago that you emphasized that there was no limit in terms of the number of years of the lease of the property. So
That's the claim of Malaysia. That's the claim of Malaysia.
Was it considered in the court of International Court of Justice legally?
No, because as I said, the International Court of Justice cannot take cognizance of the case.
Okay.
Meaning,
Okay.
it was not submitted to their jurisdiction because Malaysia refused to submit itself under the jurisdiction of the International Court of Justice.
Okay.
Because there's no, you have to remember, we are already discussing the elements of international relations. In the International Court of Justice, which is an international body, an international organization, of course, under the United Nations, if there is a controversy between and among states, they cannot submit themselves into the jurisdiction of the International Court of Justice. Meaning, the International Court of Justice cannot take cognizance of the jurisdiction if one of the countries who is actually a litigant would not submit itself to the jurisdiction of the International Court of Justice. What do I mean by this? Kung ayaw ng Malaysia na magpasakop sa jurisdiction ng International Court of Justice, hindi pwedeng husgahan ng International Court of Justice yan. Okay? Is that clear?
Thank you, Attorney.
Those are the requisites. Now, a copy of this contract is actually, it is the repository of this contract is actually in the, if I'm not mistaken, in the Library of the Congress. In the Library of Congress in the United States of America, they have a copy of this contract. I was trying to get a copy of this, but I wasn't able to secure one. I hope I will be able to secure one so that I can study it properly. But the controversy arose from the word pajak. Pajak, because based on the interpretation of the Malaysians, it means perpetual lease. But based on the interpretation of the Sultan, of the Sulu heirs, it means just an ordinary lease, which of course is the right thing to believe in, because apparently when we studied sales and also credit transactions, etc., we all know that there is no such thing as perpetual lease.
Yeah.
More so if you're talking about territorial jurisdictions. That cannot be. It's highly impossible, improbable. Okay? So, when you talk about international law, these are just one-time big-time cases. Meaning to say, it involves a lot of well-known legal luminaries. And if you would specialize on this, maybe you will just have 1 or 2 clients, 3 clients, but that's enough to make you well off and filthy rich the moment that you are the one handling these cases. Anyway, it would be good to really study all these issues. I have not fully discussed the complexities of the Saba claim, but then again, later on we will discuss this more extensively after you are already well aware of the principles under international law, so that you will be able to best appreciate how public international law can actually affect every individual, all the different states, and every citizen of the country. That's just the Saba claim. Any comment or anything that you would like to be clarified about, so that you may be interested to research more on this. For those who will just be submitting term papers, just so that you would be able to complete the number of units for public international law, you may want to submit term papers on these topics, like the Saba claim or the West Philippine Sea, because you might be able to look at it from a different perspective, and you might be able to submit additional informations which would be very extensive in your research, that might help uncover some of the so-called issues that are prevalent in these kinds of controversies. So later on, you might want to signify your intention with your biddle, so that I can give you several topics that you would like to discuss on, for those who would just be completing the subject, public international law. Okay, that's another aspect. Now, let's go to the West Philippine Sea. Would you like to discuss the West Philippine Sea?
Yeah.
The time now is
30.
7:40. You have any questions so far? You have any questions? Okay, so just to give you a basic outline on the concept of international law, these are the things which are very important for you to master, so that you would be able to later on be attuned, and you will be able to effectively understand the controversies under public international law. Okay, so first of all, you may also want to use international books, books on public international law that have been written by foreigners. There are foreign authors, but I would prefer that if for purposes of references, you may make use of the books that actually were written by British authors. When it comes to international law, the British authors have a good grasp of international law. Anyway, we are just discussing the basics of international law, so that would be very important. I will inform you about a good source of this information through your biddle later on. Can you please communicate with me the Viber or the contact number of your biddle, so that I would be able to coordinate with them, and he would take charge, or she would take charge of disseminating this information to all the members of the class, because this is very important.
Attorney, where
Yes.
would we send the details of the biddle to you? How can we reiterate who will be the biddle later po?
I will give you my Viber number later on.
Okay, thank you.
And for that matter, anyone amongst you who would like to ask questions, you can also Viber me. Do not ask me to borrow money. I don't have that. Just ask me anything that is relevant about public international law. Okay? Yes.
May I ask about international court justice? Is that different entity from ICC, or the
Can you, do you understand? Can you hear the message? Because from my end, I cannot understand what you're saying because I think your microphone is garbled. Can you please make it clearer so that I would be able to hear you, please?
I mean, the International Court of Justice, uh, ICC, the International Criminal Court, I think it's very important for
I'm sorry, I'm having a problem understanding what you're saying. Can you just type it so that I can answer?
I think attorney he emphasized the relationship between the ICC and the International Court of Justice.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
The ICC was actually created by us by some sort of a treaty. We are also members of the treaty, the ICC. Whereas the International Court of Justice is a creation of the United Nations. In the ICC, we are a signatory of that. And the purpose of the ICC, International Criminal Court, is for the punishment of people who would commit genocide or some sort of oppression to their people. Yeah, I remember a while ago somebody was talking about the International Criminal Court, wherein it involved the investigation of the former president and to include Senator Bato de la Rosa, no? Regarding their program of implementing their drug war in the Philippines. Did you know that? Well, this is just an information. During that time, the police under the policemen through the PNP, through Senator Bato de la Rosa, they were the ones initiating this police action in order to resolve the issue about the drug use, the abuse of drugs, the sale of drugs, the drug lords, etc., etc. In my case, since I was the undersecretary of the DLG during that time, I was the one who was tasked by the president to oversee the creation or the construction of these drug rehabilitation centers. And you know, one of those drug rehabilitation centers that I supervised in order to, that's the peaceful way of trying to solve the problem. Because, you know, in my belief, the drug users can be rehabilitated through a very effective drug rehabilitation program. But of course, the other means of doing it is by means of police action, which more often than not results into death and injuries. In my case, it's more of trying to rehabilitate them. So the biggest mega rehabilitation center in Fort Magsaysay, I was actually the one who I was able to supervise the construction of the so-called mega rehabilitation center. But anyway, going back to the ICC, it's more of a treaty entered into amongst nations in order to address the abuses, the acts of oppression of some leaders, public figures, against public administrators, against the people of their respective states. There were already other public personalities or international personalities who have been subjected to the International Criminal Court, who were later on made liable for genocide, for killing a lot of people in their respective states. And of course, it is the belief of some of the prosecutors under the International Criminal Court that the past administration, which was headed by no less than President Duterte, Senator De La Rosa, who was the head of the PNP, should be subjected to the international processes under the International Criminal Court. I think the status right now is that they are being investigated by the prosecutors, no? But the only problem is there is a refusal on the part of the Philippines to recognize the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court. Now, can that happen? Because the idea of the past administration is that since the Philippines has already backed out, we backed out in our membership in the International Criminal Court, is it still okay for the International Criminal Court to pursue the investigation of these alleged killings committed by the past administration? You know, the position of some international legal luminaries is that regardless of whether we have backed out from our membership in the International Criminal Court, the fact remains that at the time when these crimes were allegedly committed, we were still members, and therefore we are still subject to the investigation of the International Criminal Court. Now, what are the repercussions if, let's say, we will not be cooperative in the investigation to be conducted by the International Criminal Court? You know what will happen? We will be looked down upon, looked down by many states to be violators of human rights. And you know how it is in the international community when you are a violator of human rights. You would be one of the so-called parias, or those countries that are classified as not conducive to international interactions, particularly in economy and other areas of endeavors that would have to promote the progress and development of each country. You know, most of those countries which are classified to be human rights violators, more often than not, investors do not go there.
Yeah.
Their economy is very low. Like, for example, North Korea. Can you imagine? North Korea is having difficulty when it comes to their economic endeavor. Why? Because they are considered to be violators of international human rights. And because of that, many countries who have rich investors do not encourage their rich investors to invest in North Korea. And if in the event we would not be cooperative with the International Criminal Court, then probably we would also be classified as North Korea, wherein we are violators of human rights. And that would have ill effects, detrimental effects on the part of our country, because there would be investors who would be deterred in coming into our country because they would think that why would we help the Philippines to become economically stable when in fact they don't even recognize the rights of their own people. So that's the difference. Did I answer you right there? Did you understand my explanation? Who was the one who asked the question?
Yes, Attorney, I understand. I really understand. Thank you po.
Okay. Anyone else who would like to ask questions?
Sir, Lapus.
Your name, please?
Nathaniel Lapus po, or Nats Lapus po.
Nats Lapos, okay.
Yes, sir. Sir, with regard to the ICC, sir, if I recall, China is also a member of the ICC. Am I correct? Sir, how about why don't they investigate China for their human rights abuses, especially with regard to the persecution of the Uyghurs and the Falun Gong practitioners, wherein there are several instances of proven instances of forced organ harvesting committed in China, in which the ICC has not yet been able to address it. Are they? It seems to be quite hypocritical of them to assume jurisdiction of the Philippines when they cannot even deal with China.
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, just like in any field of endeavor, politics is a very important factor to consider, most especially the economic clout of a certain country. For example, I'll just give you an example. There are some what we call UN resolutions that are passed, is it not, by the group of by the international community condemning some acts of some states in the violation of international laws, is it not? But the thing is, some of those countries or states that are violating the law are members of what we call the security, what do you call that now?
The Security Council, sir.
The Security Council, correct. Now, they are members of the Security Council. They have the so-called veto power. The veto power to stop whatever resolutions that will be passed upon by the general membership of the United Nations. Now, why are they empowered to exercise the so-called veto powers? Because they are very powerful countries. Most of those clouds and influence that they exercise are primarily based on their military and economic power. You know, the United Nations does not have a police power. Did you know that? So whatever resolutions are passed in the United Nations, whatever laws are passed, there are no police power that would implement it. Not unless there is some sort of a UN general force that would have to implement the same because of the heinous nature of some actions of other states in trying to violate the rights of other states. There are instances like, for example, in Palestine and in Israel, because the problem there is very problematic. It involves a lot of people, and at the same time, it has been a long-standing quarrel. And there are many other countries that are interested to know the outcome of the conflict there. Sometimes the United Nations would send their so-called UN General Force, meaning it is a composite force composed of the different armed forces of the different states. But as of this time, do you think there is a power that can contend with the power of China? Do you think if there is one, the US, probably. But if the US would interfere and intervene, what do you think would Russia do?
Well, sir, since Russia and China are practically allies, along with well, a little bit of North Korea, then I think it would plunge us all into World War III.
Precisely.
That is true. And if that happens, you know, it will redound to a lot of losses in human lives and also in material aspect of our lives, material resources, I mean. So basically, it would be difficult to intervene and interfere in that regard. Just like, for example, the violation of China when it comes to territorial jurisdiction. You know, it's not only the rights of the Philippines that's being violated here. Even the nearby countries like Taiwan, is it not, Vietnam, Malaysia, and Indonesia, they are also affected. But how come we are unable to stop the Chinese in their quest to occupy the West Philippine Sea? Oh, you see, that is a big question. Why? Because China is well off. So basically, the more that you have power, the more that you have economic clout, it would be difficult for the community of nations to really make you toe the line, so to speak, because of your clout, political and economic clout. Can you imagine how big is the economy of China right now? Huh? They are almost as big as the United States. There will come a time they will be probably bigger than the United States when it comes to their economic capacity. It's only good that the United States they control the currencies because of their dollar, is it not? Because most of the transactions that happen in the international community, they deal with dollars. They don't deal using other currencies. Like, for example, our money, the Philippine peso. If you buy petroleum from other countries, you do not use the peso.
Dollar.
That is just a worthless paper for them. You use dollars. So the thing is, Philippines would have first to buy dollars. We have to change our currency to dollars, and then when we have the dollars, we use it to buy petroleum. Can you imagine? But then again, look at the United States. They don't have any problems when it comes to their dollars. Because the dollars actually is, they can just print dollars and that controls everything. But of course, I'm just trying to exaggerate it. What I'm saying is that the Americans are well entrenched when it comes to the economic clout and power. Nationwide, worldwide, I mean. So that is the problem. Sometimes it's difficult to interfere into the affairs of international powers like China, United States, France, Germany, at who else? Great Britain. These are what we call as the members of the powerful bloc. You call them the G8. the powerful countries who are strong when it comes to military and economic powers. Can you imagine? You compare the military powers of all the countries in the world. Even if all the countries in the world would ally themselves to each other against against United States, do you think they have a chance of winning against the United States? I don't think so. They will just deploy their intercontinental ballistic missiles. Then there's no need for them to go to other countries to fight a war. They will just launch their ICBM, which is surface to surface, launch from their territories. In the United States, it will just reach other countries. In a matter of hours, in a matter of minutes, it will be there. It will just erase many countries from the face of the world, face of the earth. And can you imagine how advantageous is the military power of the United States? They have submarines, you know? The submarines, they can just deploy it nationwide, worldwide, and then they can just launch from their submarines their Nautilus missiles, which can destroy one country. Just a few number of Nautilus missiles can already destroy a country. Can you imagine how powerful they are? We have only probably around 20 airplanes, but in their country they have around 2,000 to 3,000 military airplanes. And their airplanes are not just Cessna planes. Ours is just one machine, one motor planes. Whereas they have F-15, F-18, F-20, F-22, which can even surpass the speed of light. So we are talking about something that is quite different. They are beyond our reach. We cannot reach out to their level at this point in time because we are so far behind. That's the sad thing about it. So let's not bother ourselves with the powers of the US and China and Russia because we can never compare ourselves with them at this point in time.
Attorney,
Yes.
may I ask what is your comment of the you're talking about the military powers of those powerful countries like US against China, and there are rumors in the Philippines situation, especially in strengthening the treaties between US and Philippines, that part of their military preparation that the Philippines is the strategic territory for defense against the enemy powerful countries like China against US.
You know, in international law, you ought to remember there's no such thing as neutrality. The only country that survived because of being neutral is Switzerland. That's the only country which I know which have survived so far. World War I and World War II. You know why? Because Switzerland is strategically located in Europe. And their position in Europe with respect to their territorial jurisdiction is that they are well protected because of natural dividers like mountains, Alps, etc., etc. Now, in our case, the Philippines, if we become neutral, do you think China will spare us? Do you think the United States will spare the Philippines because we will just say, we are neutral, so you cannot come into our country. We do not want to be brought into the conflict between China and the United States. Do you think they would respect that? I don't think so. The one who gets Philippines first would have a strategic advantage already. So it is a wrong policy for the administration at this point in time to become neutral when it comes to the controversy between the United States and China. We must take sides and choose the lesser evil, so to speak. Choose the lesser evil. Because, in order for us to survive, we must be able to choose a country that will really stand for us. But because if you would take a look at our history, we are more well entrenched when it comes to American relationship, no? Although we have not been treated very fairly because of the so many, not abuses basically, but because of not giving us our fair share or equitable right when it comes to our resources and also the support that must be extended. But I think it would be much better if we align ourselves to the United States of America rather than China. You know, during World War II, we were allies with the US, is it not? And Japan was our common enemy. But did you know that Japan became more progressive than the Philippines? Why? Because the United States helped Japan. It helped Japan. Why is this so? Why did they help their enemy rather than us? You know, probably they have learned their lessons from history. You know why? Because of the atomic bombs that they dropped in Nagasaki and Hiroshima, Japan was really crushed to the ground, militarily and economically. But then again, you cannot discount the Japanese because the Japanese have been inexistent as a country for so many centuries. Even before the birth of Christ, Japan was already there. BC, Japan was already an empire. So what am I saying? It is easy for them to recover. More so that they are, the values of the people in Japan are so well disciplined that they can actually act as one country in unison and could bounce back to the top. And later on, if they would still be an enemy of the US, the US would have a difficulty in dealing with Japan. Look at Germany. World War I. Germany lost, but that became the driving force for Germany to make its country progressive by creating more armaments and weapons. And you know, when there is a leader who is a megalomaniac like Adolf Hitler, who would take the helms of government, he would use that as a basis to get back at their enemies. So World War II basically was caused by the thought that Germany would like to take revenge on those countries which have actually deserted them or have been traitors to them. And that might be a cause for Japan to also recover and fight back the United States again, and which is not far from being far from happening if at all they have deserted Japan. But you know, the Americans, they think in advance. In other words, they know how to defend themselves. So instead of really putting down Japan, they just help Japan to recover from the devastation brought about by the atomic bombs. How many among you here have been to Japan? Anyone? Oh, you have been to Japan. Have you seen the places which have been bombed by America, Nagasaki and Hiroshima? Have you been to those places?
Only Hiroshima, sir.
Hiroshima. Baka naman hindi yun ang binisita mo. Baka naman yung sa mga nightclub ang binisita mo, iho.
Hindi, sir. I was able to experience one semester studying in University of Tokyo as exchange student.
Very good, very good. You know, my son, who happens to be an assistant labor attaché in Osaka, toured us in Japan. We went to visit Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Those were the two places that were bombed with the U.S. atomic bombs. That was the first experience of a country to be bombed with an atomic bomb. Can you imagine the destruction that happened there? It killed even the innocent beings. When you say innocent beings, that does not only include human beings, even the dogs, the cats, the cockroaches, even the mosquitoes were all killed because of the atomic bomb. There were hundreds of thousands who died.
Only the cockroach daw survived.
Yes, it really crushed Japan to the ground. Can you imagine? And yet, if you go to Japan right now, they're very progressive.
Yeah.
They're very, very progressive. And we are very far behind from Japan. You look at their train system. Their train system. You can go anywhere in the part of Japan by using the train. As here, we take the jeepney. That's the problem. We are so... I don't know, why is it that we cannot develop our trains when in the first place, did you know that the first trains were actually built here in the Philippines? We have been very progressive before. Trains were everywhere. There were trains going to Bicol, trains going to Baguio, trains going to the different parts of the Philippines, even in Negros. Did you know that there were trains in Negros? Huh? But then, but now it's gone. Why is this so? Well, you know, because of some interest of some people who would like to develop the automotive industry, because there's more money in the automotive industry rather than in using train, which is a more effective public transportation.
Yes.
You know, what our country needs are leaders who are progressive minded. What our country needs are people who have the sincerity to run the affairs of our country. One who is nationalistic, one who is not more interested about money, one who is not interested about popularity and fame, but one who would like to promote the real development of our country. And I hope that there would be some leaders coming from your ranks who would, in the near future, be active in trying to fight for the rights of our people. That's what we need. That is, it's very, very disappointing that we have been a country for since 1898 at least. You are still a young country compared to other countries, but we should have already attained a certain level of development wherein the lives of people are already comfortable. But then again, as I said, our politics is too rotten. Huh? You can just imagine who were elected as our officials, no, in the legislature, in the executive. Not that I am sour graping, because I also ran for senator last election, but I did not win because most people would prefer the likes of Robin Hood Padilla. I'm not saying that Robin Hood Padilla is a bad senator. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is the preference of our people are more on people who they think are more popular.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I have been an advocate of federalism all the while. Parliamentary federalism. Did you know, you look at your Wikipedia, read who is the founder of Partido Federal ng Pilipinas. You can look at it now. Look at your Wikipedia, the founder of Partido Federal ng Pilipinas. Anyone who saw it? Who is the founder?
Kayo po.
Oh, see? I'm the founder of the Partido Federal ng Pilipinas, but it was snatched away from me. It was taken by some people who do not have principles in life, and they use it for this administration to run for politics. I'm not blaming anyone. I'm just saying it as a fact that I was the founder of the Partido Federal ng Pilipinas. But anyway, it's okay. I believe that God will guide and lead us. I hope and I suppose that in the near future there would be a generation that would really take the cudgels of trying to protect the interests of our country, so that we would be able to become more progressive, be more conscientious about our being nationalist Filipinos, and that we would promote the interests of each individual. You know, I've been hoping that we will be able to create a country that is based on institutions that are well respected and with principles, political principles that are not subject to corruption and abuse. But you know, that's a difficult thing to do. It's a difficult thing to do. But I'm sure that in the near future, if there would be leaders like you who would be sincere in your efforts, in your desire to create a change in our country, we will become successful. You have any other questions before we go on another matter? Okay, so what will be the basis of our discussions? Of course, these are the matters. You can take an advanced research on these subject matters. Of course, international conventions, whether general or particular, establishing rules expressly recognized by the contesting states. I'm referring to the issues that are subjected under the International Court of Justice, the international custom as evidence of a general practice of generally accepted principles of law. Uh, of course, this is subject to the so-called recognition of the different countries, and also subject to the provisions of Article 59 of judicial decisions and teachings of the most highly qualified publications of law of the various nations, as subsidiary secondary means of determination of the rules of law. Now, the term customary law, what is your understanding about customary law? Do you think that the customary law is a written law?
No.
Anyone? I'm just trying to level out our concept about international law. Anyone who has any idea about the customary law? Okay.
Sir,
Go ahead.
sir, yes.
Nathaniel, no? Nathaniel?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. When you say customary law, sir, it states that, well, it states that the state itself should and shall recognize and respect the rights of rights and traditions of indigenous communities, and it should assist in developing their cultures, traditions, and institutions, sir.
That's right, but it's not limited to that, huh? When you say customary law, the word itself, customs. So it means that these are customs or traditions that have been observed and recognized by some other states in the past. So it has become as a standard for the different states in its dealing with each others. So for example, by customary law, meaning by tradition, it is observed that this portion of the sea was actually the fishing ground of some states nearby or adjacent to it in the past how many years, and it has been well recognized by other states. Then it becomes some sort of a customary law that defines jurisdiction of other countries. You know what I mean? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So if it is a customary law, it means that it has been a tradition observed and recognized by other states in the past and has become to be the law between and among those states dealing with each other in relation to that subject matter. Okay? So we will find, or we will encounter a lot of these so-called customary laws that have been a part and parcel of international law. And of course, you would be able to find out that it has its historical origins. It has its historical background. That's the reason why I was discussing with you all along some of the events of our history in the past, because these have been the sources of the so-called customary laws, duly established between and among the states and nations because of their so-called recognition of a certain right vested upon them by the duration of time that has actually been established through their dealings with each others. So I hope that you understand. That's just the basic concept of it. But we will go into the details later on when we already would be discussing about the subject matter. Anyway, so I think that would be enough for the meantime. We have very few more minutes to go, and I will give you the rest of the time to select among yourselves your BDEL, no? BDEL, so that there will be a good coordination amongst us in relation to whatever information I would like to relay with you, and also matters pertaining to some are raising their hands. Anyone raising their hands? I see here some hands again, gestures, raising your hands. Anyway, so if there's none, I would just like to share with you my number in the Viber so that if you would like to contact me later on, you would be able to do so. Wait, one moment. I will just write my number. Chat. Okay, so this would be my number. You can contact me here. Okay. You get it? So anyone who would like to
No.
Viber me for some information, of course, as I said, in relation to our subject matter, do not message me with information that are not relevant to our subject matter. Otherwise, I will fail you. Okay.
Attorney, no number was sent in the chat box po.
It's there already. Did you see it?
No.
None?
Wala po.
None.
Oh, wait. Saan ba yun? To everyone. Wait. I just sent it to everyone. Okay. I'll send it to everyone. I'll send it now.
Yeah.
Did you get it?
Yes po.
Sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Very good. As I understand, the message given to me by Joan Benavides, she is right now in Davao City, is that correct? So most of you, may I just know, anyone among you who are right now having your attending this class, where are you located? Just for me to have an idea right now. Anyone who are staying in Manila? Anyone? Can you raise your hands? Those who are staying in Manila? Okay. Most of you. Who are staying in the provinces? Provinces, please. Anyone? Oh, there are. From provinces. Okay, can we start with Jason? Where are you from, Jason?
Yes, attorney, good evening. I'm from Cavite lang naman po.
Cavite. So that's near enough. Anyone else? Anyone else? The one who raised his hand a while ago?
From Pangasinan, sir.
Who's this?
Mr. Haban.
John? Haban. John, where in Pangasinan, John?
In Ordaneta, sir.
In?
Ordaneta, sir.
Urdaneta. Gateway to Baguio.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, po, sir.
I've been there several times. I distributed a lot of lunch there. Anyway, that's good. So the connection is good in Ordaneta. Anyone else who is also from the yes?
Attorney, I am from
Clyde.
South Cotabato.
Who's from South Cotabato?
Attorney, Benavides po. I'll be back on next week on Manila and be back again in South Cotabato.
Okay, South Cotabato. Be sure to bring pineapples from South Cotabato.
Yes, for you.
I'm just joking. Did you know that it was the Department of Agrarian Reform that actually gave the lands to Dole Philippines, consisting of 6,000 hectares? That's big. And we were the ones who gave that land to them. Okay, anyone else who is from the province? Yes, Clyde. Sorry. Anyone?
Sir, Mr. Clyde Aquinas.
Clyde.
I'm just from Noveleta, Cavite, sir.
From Cavite as well. Anyway, the connection is good. Anyone else?
May attorney, I'm Marizal Osorio, attorney from Bulacan.
From Bulacan. Anyway, Bulacan is just near. The connection is also okay. Very good. Anyone else?
Sir,
Attorney.
Yes?
Anjanet po, from Antipolo City.
From Antipolo. Okay. So we are just near each other, You're from Antipolo. I am from Cainta right now, Cainta. So we're just near each other. Anyone else?
Sir, Villasaran po.
From what province are you?
Near lang po, Tagaytay po.
Cavite. How's the climate in Tagaytay?
Malamig po paggabi.
That's good. You're lucky, No need for an air conditioning unit.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Ako po, attorney. I'm from Bohol, but now assigned in Quezon City. But every other week, I travel around the country for
Okay.
the job. Kaya,
Mahjong gabi.
yeah. Kaya sometimes I attend classes in the airport or inside the plane.
Where? Where in Kwan? In the that's our tourist place
Yeah,
in the airport.
In Bohol, Panglao.
Panglao.
Panglao
That's a
Island,
good
yeah.
place. I've been there many times. A
Yeah.
beautiful place. Anyone else? No more? Okay, so thank you for attending our first session. I hope that you found it interesting. I just tried to, as I said, titillate your minds and tickle your minds so that you would have more interest in studying public international law. There are a lot of things that we can learn in public international law. If later on you would like to specialize in international law, that would be well and good. For the meantime, let's concentrate in our studies. And with God's blessings, in the near future, you'll become lawyers as well. As I told you, I've handled a lot of students already. I've been a professor for more than a decade in one of the schools, law schools here in Metro Manila. I have students who are all lawyers. I have students who are chief prosecutors in the main cities here in Metro Manila. Some are judges, some are undersecretaries, some are cabinet secretaries, some are congressmen, governors. I hope in the near future that many among you would become of the same position as well, so that you can help in the development of our country. Okay, so the BIDL, may I remind whoever is the elected BIDL, can you please submit to me the attendance through my Viber? And then can the Viber please introduce himself or herself later on after you have been elected? So I would close my video and I will mute my microphone now. You can meet amongst yourself through this Zoom and elect your BIDL. And I hope that you would coordinate with me immediately as soon as you get elected. Is anyone from PCU listening with us, listening at this point in time?
No po, attorney.
Wala?
They don't do that for classes. They just leave the link for the professor and the students to enter.
Okay. So nobody is monitoring. Okay, anyway, thank you so much and may God bless us all. Good night to everyone. And I hope that we will have a very good interaction under public international law. Thank you so much and God bless.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you po. God bless po.
Thank you, sir.
0928.
By the way, can anyone lead in the election, please? Somebody would have to take charge of the election. For the meantime, acting as the COMELEC. O sige, you talk it out amongst yourselves already, okay? Thank you,
Yes, sir.
thank you very much.
6670.
Yeah. So sino pong who wants to volunteer as leader for public international law subject?
Wala talaga mag-volunteer.
Volunteer po tayo.
Nominate na lang.
Yung una daw nagsalita kanina.
Thank you. If wala po volunteer, we can do nominations. Para once may nominated, we can elect from those members na nominated.
Zero 0928 naman. Motion to close the nomination.
I decline. Masyado na po ako maraming klaseng binibidel. That's why we need others po.
Sir Haban, ikaw na lang.
To 8 51 60
Ayun po, may right against self-incrimination. Si Sir Lungay daw po.
Sir, di talaga kaya. Kung okay lang sana sa schedule ko, okay lang ako, pero hindi talaga kaya. Halos every week ako nag-travel.
Ayun, sir.
Sir Jason.
Ayun.
Yun, okay na.
Okay na yan, Jason.
Okay.
Okay na.
Ayos.
Ayos na.
Ayos yan.
Sige. As a help to Janet. Ako
With,
na lang.
with matching double block pa yan, middle.
Yeah. Sige, Janet. Okay na po, attorney. Meron na po kaming bidder.
Yun.
Message ko na lang si attorney. Ay,
Okay, congratulations, Jason.
yes,
Jason.
attorney. Di marukot po.
Okay,
Di
Jason,
marukot.
please. Sige, kindly Viber me, ha? Check the
Yes, sir.
attendance right now. You Viber me, and then I will coordinate with you and give you. How many are interested to get a book? Raise your hands. Those who are interested to get the book. Okay, so most of you. So probably there would be 18 as of now. I will order for 18 books. I will make an extra copy so that those who have not attended as yet will be able to get also, okay? And I will just relate to Jason the price of the book so that you can get it from the Dean's office and leave the payment there.
Yeah.
Or just leave it to Jason na lang siguro. Bahala na si Jason dyan.
Yes,
Okay?
yes, noted.
Okay.
60, 60,
So we now dismiss the class. Thank you so much. You may now leave the video, and thank you. I hope to see you again. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you, sir. Good night po.
Good night, good night, good
Thank
night.
you po.
Good night.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Lapit na, 5K. Ano na lang, tatlo. Baka may tatlo kayo dyan. I-5K nyo na. Be, kung hindi, minukbang. Kasi kanina, ano na yun eh. Ay, hindi pa pala tatlo, 103. 103 pa pala. Uy, paano naman sa ano ko? Patamsak naman sa Premiere. Kaya lang, send ko yung Premiere ko. Oh, minumukbang yung tamsak. 11 na lang. Kanina 18 yan. Ampere naman tong si Lolo. Ampere. Uy. Hello Joyce, Europe. Miguel up shout out. Salamat sa pagbisita. Duslak 13. Bakit naging 13 na naman yan ay? 24 na yan kanina ba? Good evening. Maraming salamat. Mag-end na ako. Five one six zero. Maraming salamat. Uwi na si host. Salamat sa inyo ha. and forever yours. Dark as light. Salamat sa inyong lahat.